Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking with Margaret. Margaret and I met at Amazon, where we both started our careers. After Amazon, Margaret worked at a boutique consulting firm at an e-commerce startup, and then she pursued her MBA at Columbia. After graduating, she joined Merck, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, in a finance role. You attended one of the top MBA schools in the country. I think there's a few different reasons that people tend to join MBA programs. One, they're pivoting their career. Two, they're just interested in gaining some basic business knowledge or building on their business knowledge. Three, they're interested in building a network. Or four, they want to take some time off, whether that's to travel or work on their side business. In my experience, those are kind of the primary reasons that people go to an MBA program. I'm curious, what motivated you to go back to school, and was there anything unexpected that you took away from the program?
So I think, like you said, that was the most common reasons people went back. And for me, I think it was more so for the knowledge and then for the network. While working on the e-commerce business, I think I realized that there's some aspects of, business knowledge that I was not good enough, like the marketing component, which I think it's very critical to build a successful brand, given social media now is such a big thing to promote your brand. So there's just certain components I think I can learn more going back to school. The second part is the networking part, which I think after the program that was unexpected. I think I really made a lot of good friends out of school and met a lot of people who are very successful. I think just really that really broaden your perspective and horizon on looking things differently. Having exposure on variety of topics that perhaps I wouldn't get into without going to school. Just taking classes in different industry like the pharmaceutical part, or the VC part or angel investing, or just a lot of different topics I think really was not presented before I went to school. So that I think was sort of unexpected, and definitely the friendship part was also unexpected as well. You made a lot of friends at business school, but I really appreciate that I was able to really make a few good connection there.
That's fantastic. I like that you bring up kind of the side classes. You mentioned like pharmaceutical things and angel investing. I was curious, were there any classes that really stood out to you that you kind of took on the side that you thought were really interesting?
Yeah, there's one class I really like. So I have a really good friend from school. She's she's a VC investor. So she sort of brought me into this class. It's investing in in the medical industry. So every classes we had very senior level executives from the various pharmaceutical or medical devices company to come and talk to us about their perspective on the companies, their products, their view. And then we talk about, should we invest in the company? And so I thought that one was really great, just to also on the side think about how to finance yourself, how to invest in the market, and then get to listen into some of the executive advices and just thoughts on the company. So I thought that class I really like, and I also was able to invest on my own as well. So
Wow, I feel like that is a tremendously practical and extremely interesting.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There was the other class I also enjoy, the angel investing one. So we learned about what an entrepreneur would go through to get funding as a very early stage startup, and then at the end of it, because the professor is working for one of the angel investing group in New York City. So she brought us into one of the presentation, the pitch that their organization had. So we were sitting alongside with other investors to hear about, some of the ideas, some of the people who are asking for funding. So that was also cool. And we did a due diligence with one of the firms and to just, ask questions and to evaluate as an investor, what we think, how, what kind of deals we would like to offer, and if, the agreement is reasonable or not. So just evaluating market, the entire startup, the potential, and it's great to think about it on both sides, as an entrepreneur and also as an investor. So I thought that one was also one of the highlights from the program.
That is super cool. Did you get a sense of how much of it, when they're kind of evaluating whether to invest as angel investors, to invest in kind of early stage startups, did you get a sense of how much of it they sort of is somewhat formulaic, and it's like, well, what are their projected revenue and what are like certain business metrics, and how they kind of evaluate maybe the softer things, which is like, oh, I believe in this person. Did you get a sense of what the mix is?
I think maybe depending on the investors, but like you said, the revenue, the market has to be there. And then it's the people, right? The founder and the entire team. Like, do they have the required skills to become successful? Do they have the right expertise at the team to bring everything together? So I think it's, I don't know, maybe I'll put it 40-60. 40 is the people, 60 is the market. Or maybe some investors have different views. They trust the people more than the market, because you can always pivot and change your products, but the people, are critical to do those, so could be a mix. It's hard. I can't give you a, exact percentage, but maybe I'll say 40 and 60 for my personal point of view.
One thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and you and I have talked about this one-on-one before, is this idea of back at kind of MBA, this mix of introverts versus extroverts in the program. And one thing that I want to do is, I know that there's a lot of definitions out there in the world about, people feel very strongly about what defines an introvert versus an extrovert. So I think for the purposes of this conversation, the way that I usually define it is an introvert is someone who gets energy from being on their own. That's how they recharge. They're someone who's more likely to listen in a conversation. They don't want to be the center of attention in a lot of situations. I'm curious if you felt like there was a clear breakdown between extroverts versus introverts in your MBA program. Do you agree with that definition that I just gave?
I agree with the definition. So I identify myself, or from the test, I identify myself as an introvert, and from the test as well, prove that very accurately. So I agree with your definition. I definitely recharge when I'm alone, and I like to listen. I don't like to be in the center as a spotlight when all the focus is on me. So that's very accurate. And at the MBA program, or I think just generally at workplace, I think people tend to promote the extrovert personality and characteristics, just because it's important, to network, to make yourself present, to meet a lot of people, and so a lot of the extrovert characteristic personality really sort of benefit in terms of that perspective. But I also felt like you can train yourself to be extrovert even if you're an introvert. So I think I somewhat converted myself throughout the years, just because the environment I'm at, to become more extroverted. So just to speak up more, to talk to people, to network, and trying to make more presence at work or at the program, at the MBA program. So that I think can be done, but then at the end of the day, I still need my time to like recharge, just because I spend a lot of time and energy being somewhat more extroverted per se. So I think that's, for me, what I'm feeling in terms of the two characters. I think you can learn and adapt and become more extroverted, just because the society sort of how do I say it? The society sort of promotes or encourage people to be, more out there and, speak up and uh, represent yourself.
I think it's fantastic. I think that it's really commendable that you identified that this is what society expects and you tried to kind of, work on this and recognize that it's an important thing to adjust a little bit to the expectations of people at work, because I do think that there is a huge emphasis on someone speaking up in a meeting. That person tends to get more credit than maybe the person sitting right next to them who did the same amount of work on something.
Yeah.
That said, I think as someone who has a lot of kind of understanding of people who are introverts in the room and are working really hard and bringing so much to the table, it makes me feel like there's a lot more that we should do to recognize this kind of work, even if it's not the loudest voice in the room. And so I'm curious if you have any thoughts on what we could do to be a little bit more understanding and supportive of the introverts in the workplace.
Yeah. So when I was at the MBA program, we have learning team. And I think me and the other person, interestingly, from the Asian culture, tend to be a little more introverted and don't speak up as much. I think it's part of the culture thing where we tend to speak up less and sort of listen first and then provide opinions. I'm not representing everyone, but just saying that there could be more people who are like, us. And so I think what our team did well is, was to be inclusive and specifically ask the person opinions, make the person feel comfortable and respected, and just, ask or just give the person more time to think about it, and at the very end, and, ask for feedback. I think everyone has opinion, and if given the opportunities and a comfortable setup, the person will be able to speak up more and be willing to share as time goes on. So I think creating a more inclusive environment, and knowing that there are people who have different personalities coming from different background, culture, will be helpful for the team environment, for everyone to feel good to contribute and to share their thoughts.
I really like that. I think that's a really great idea. I think you also touched on something which I think is really important, regardless introvert, extrovert, but just being sensitive to people's different styles. And this idea, if you're putting on a meeting and you're asking for feedback and things like that, actually sharing information ahead of time so people can think about it and process, I think helps introverts, extroverts. I think it helps everyone. So that way, for the people who don't like just making things up in the moment, giving them the time to reflect on things like that, I think will give kind of a more equal chance to maybe people who don't feel as comfortable speaking up, to at least have given them a chance to formulate their thoughts, to reflect on things, and then have the meeting, have the conversation. And to your point, say, hey, can you weigh in, Sue? Can you weigh in, Bob?
Yeah, I once heard from one of the senior leadership at my firm saying that diversity is to be invited to a party, but inclusion is to dance like no one else is looking at you. So really feel comfortable, and I think that's something that we should all work together on achieving.